Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to a $500 Intel gaming PC build. Now, people have been requesting me to do more of these Intel style builds, and I haven't done one in a couple of weeks, so here's another video for a $500 Intel build. Now, also, people have been requesting me to do an update to my old $500 build. I haven't updated that in about 3 weeks, so that's going to come out in the next few days. I have a lot of other videos to edit, so just stay tuned for that. But without further ado, let's get into this. With the CPU, I went with the Intel Core i3-3220. It's an Ivy Bridge CPU running at 3.3 GHz. It's LJ1155, 55 watts. It's a dual-core CPU with hyper-threading. Unfortunately, the i3 does not have any overclocking capability, so that is unfortunate, but it's still a really solid CPU, and that hyper-threading does help a lot in more CPU-intensive games like Battlefield 3 and Witcher 2, because it is like a Mach 4 cores. It's not as powerful as, say, having 4 physical cores, but it's still helpful. A lot of people shit on the i3 for being a dual-core CPU, but for budget builds, this is really, really good. And again, that hyper-threading does help a lot in more CPU-intensive games, like I said, Battlefield, Witcher, and this is just a really solid CPU for $130. And for the budget, and I was going to go with an Intel Pentium originally to save a little bit of money, but that's going a little too low, and I couldn't go with an i5, even in a lower-end i5, so i3 was a balance between those two, and this is going to work really well in the build. And a CPU cooler isn't even going to be a necessity with the i3. The i3 runs so cool. It's only 55 watts, like I said. With Intel, the stock coolers are actually pretty decent, especially because with the i3, you can't even overclock, so getting a CPU cooler would be kind of pointless. For the motherboard, I went with the Asus H61M-A. Now, this is a really good motherboard for about $65. If you guys actually shop around, you might be able to find it for about $50 to $55, but just look around, look at Amazon and whatnot. This supports up to two 2200 OC RAM, so that's pretty solid. And yeah, this is going to work really well in the build. Not a lot of features that you can SLI or Crossfire, obviously, but with a $500 build, I doubt you would want to. This is going to work really well in the build, and hold the CPU, it's going to get the job done for about $65. Now, Intel CPUs are unfortunately a little bit more expensive than AMD CPUs, so I had to kind of take a hit somewhere, and I chose to take the hit in the RAM department. I went with G.Skill Ripjaw's 4 gigabytes instead of 8 gigabytes. Now, this is about $33 for one stick of 4 gigabyte of RAM. Now, why I went with this to take a hit on this is because you can add another stick of RAM very easily. You're just gonna have to pay another $32, and you can add another stick of 4 gigabytes of RAM. But I really wanted to get a better graphics card. I was originally gonna get a 7770, but that seemed a little too low for a $500 build. And speaking of the graphics card, let's get into that. I want the Sapphire Radeon HD 7850. This is about $145 after a mail-in rebate, and this is a really solid graphics card, especially for even games at 1080p. And at lower resolutions, this card is an absolute monster at, say, 1680 by 1050, or if you go even lower than that, if you have a 1280 by 720p TV, or 1366 by 768, this card's gonna absolutely rip through any game. And even upcoming games like Watch Dogs and Battlefield 4, if you guys play at lower resolutions, or even decide to lower the settings at 1080p, it's gonna run really well, and you're gonna get really high frame rates. Unfortunately, AMD doesn't offer the free games anymore. The AMD Power Up, I believe the promotion was, but some places apparently do. Apparently some different regions do, and some different retailers do, so check around. Newegg doesn't. Newegg does for the higher end cards, but their lower end cards, they've stopped doing it, so just shop around. You guys might be able to find it. For the power supply, I went with the Corsair Builder Series CX430. This is a 430 watt power supply at 8, and it's 80 plus bronze certified. Now, 430 watts may not be a lot, but chances are you're not going to be adding much more to the build, obviously, since you can't SLI or Crossfire in this build. And the 7850 uses like no power at all. The CPU uses absolutely no power, only 55 watts, so that's a very minimal portion of the power supply's wattage. So the CX430 is absolutely going to be fine to power the build. I know a lot of people are like, at least 500 watts, at least 700 watts. Yeah, get a 700 watt power supply for a budget build. So a 400 watt power supply is going to work absolutely fine for the build. For the hard drive, I went with the Western Digital WD Blue 1TB. You guys already know what I say, but just to reiterate it, since this might be some of you guys' first time watching my videos, if you guys already have a hard drive from a previous build, you can salvage that hard drive and skip this step entirely, or get a 60 gigabyte SSD. I'm going to move on from there to the case. And finally, I got the NZXT Source 210. Now, this case isn't all too fancy, but I really got it because the main drawing factor is the price for only 39 bucks. And if you guys shop around, you might actually be able to find stores with $10 mail-in rebate. So getting this case for, 25 to 30 bucks is an absolute steel, because it's going to get the job done. It's not anything beyond your expectations, beyond the necessary limit, but you know what, for a $500 build, to save on the case, to put towards other aspects of the build, you know, interior before outerior is what I like to say. So good one with that case, and thanks for watching this video, guys. Remember to subscribe, like this video, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.